Right. So now that we know what financial independence is, which is what we discussed in the previous episode, in case you missed it, how do we actually start with financial independence? How do you start taking control? How do you start building financial security? What do you do next? In this episode, you will learn how you already have some financial independence in your life, how you can learn and make progress faster, how you can start taking control of your finances today, and how to start investing for financial independence. If you're new to the FIRE movement or new to financial independence in general, this episode is perfect for you because we're going to go through each of the steps to actually get started on financial independence. And so hopefully this will help you identify what is the next thing you need to do to move forward. Enjoy. Hi, my name is Sebastian Aguilar, and welcome back to the FIRE Belgium Show. Today, we're going to talk about how to start with financial independence. This episode is really for beginners. For those of you who have been in financial independence community for a while or in the movement for a while, you'll probably find some of the things I'm going to mention here fairly normal, but it will also be a good reminder. But no matter what, it is aimed at beginners. So if this is you, then welcome. This is going to be a great episode for you. And if you know about this already, or if you find this useful, feel free to send it to someone who might not be familiar with financial independence, and I'm sure they'll get a lot of value from it. So this is basically, in this episode, we're going to talk about the steps that almost anybody can take to build financial security and financial freedom and eventually reach financial independence, whether that's early in life or later in life. But I'm certain that all of the things that we're going to discuss here today can help anyone shave off a few years, if not decades, from the usual retirement age in Belgium, or at least make sure that you have a very comfortable retirement in addition to your pension. That is what I'm hoping to do with this episode. So the very first step for anybody to really even be able to start on the journey to financial independence is to realize that, yes, you can take control of your finances. Yes, you have control. You are responsible for your personal finances, and you can make changes. You can improve things. Not everything depends on your employer or society or the economy. So the first step is really to be able to say, hey, I can make something with this. I can change things so that I can improve my situation. A lot of the conversation that people have is how things are bad around them, happening, about things that are happening to them. And I also see a lot of people who I speak to about financial independence who simply say, oh, for me, it's not possible because such and such thing is happening, which are external factors. Like the economy is like this, my employer is like this, in my social circle, it's like this. So the very first step is it's really the realization that financial independence is possible and that you have power to make changes in your own life and improve things. So this is the very first step. The second step to me is to surround yourself with people who are in that mindset. So join the community of like-minded people who speak about money and who are willing to take control to basically improve their lives. So that could be the FIRE Belgium community on Facebook. We have a Facebook group with online discussions, meetups, in person and online. We discuss all sorts of topics there, and we develop, resources for everyone to be able to learn from, free resources and a paid program. There's different things that are being developed so that people can actually take control, make progress together forward, and make progress in that sense. There's also other communities in Belgium. Be FIRE on Reddit is a huge community with tons of resources, a lot of guidance on how to progress with this. I would say Be FIRE is great for anonymous discussions. The FIRE Belgium Facebook group is a lot more, where there are individuals, so it's more for the connection with other people who are on the same journey. But no matter where you connect, I highly recommend you get involved with the community because we have so much to learn from each other. And the journey is so much easier when we feel understood by others. One thing that's really hard with financial independence is that we go against the crowd. We go against the flow, the general, we go against the general way people see life as, the regular path, 9 to 5, consuming more things, upgrading things, going on bigger holidays, and sort of getting on that usual train that most people are on. And when we jump on the financial independence journey, basically what we do is we go with this, we take a shortcut, right? We don't take the usual train. Somehow we manage to build, a spaceship that takes us to our destination much faster, if that's the goal indeed. But certainly it's something that goes against the flow, goes against common wisdom. And so alone is difficult, but when you're surrounded by others and that other people who also see the world the same way you see it, it helps. Now, what you want to do is avoid falling into an echo chamber where you don't see anything outside anymore. There's a risk, obviously, in that, because financial independence, I think, is something that can take a big chunk of your attention for a while, especially when you discover and decide to dive deep in it. But do that. I think there's tremendous learnings from there, but don't forget about the rest of the world, because the world continues, even if you are sort of on a separate shortcut to financial independence, let's say. I would say step number 3 is to take stock of where you are today. So what is your situation today? I'm speaking obviously about, your employment situation, the way you earn money, your relationships, your responsibilities. But obviously from a financial perspective, we're talking about specifically 6 numbers that you must know. And if you don't know them, now is a good time, after this episode, to pause and go and figure them out. Calculate them, estimate them, write them down somewhere, because you need to know exactly what those 6 numbers are. So let's start with the basic stuff. The first and probably the main number that you have to know is your income. Most of us know our income right away because it's something that we see coming every month. But some people have multiple sources of income, and it's worth just making sure that your income is somewhere, it's tracked. And if you can, also get a history of your past income, so that you have an idea of how much you've earned, right? Earning some money is sort of the very first step to be able to saving money. So we need to track that number, is super important. The next one is expenses. And it's kind of, always like in opposition with income in a way, or with savings. But tracking expenses is important. You have to have an idea of what it is. And the more detailed you can have, on your expenses, the better, because it will give you a deeper understanding, a deeper sense of where your money is going, right? I like to see money as something that's flowing, right? It's like water flowing from one thing to the next. And so financial independence is about filling up a bucket of money, a bucket of savings that is invested. And basically your income is the amount of money that's going in, and expenses is the amount of money that's basically leaking out. And you want to be sure to sort of plug a bunch of leaks so that your bucket fills up faster. It's one way of looking at it. So yeah, figure out how much is your income, how much are your expenses. Obviously you want your expenses to be under your income. And once you have those 2 numbers, you get your cash flow. So if you look at like income on a monthly basis and expenses on a monthly basis, then you have the difference would be the cash flow of that specific month for your personal finances, right? So if you're saving money, you're able to spend less than you earn, then you'll have positive cash flow. On the other hand, if you're spending more than you earn, you'll have negative cash flow, which means you have to go and draw onto some kind of savings or borrow money, and that's not good. So you want to be positive, and then you want to increase, that number, cash flow, right? So and you do that by either increasing your income or reducing your expenses. It sounds very logical when I'm saying it like this. If you have a very basic personal finance knowledge, then this is super simple. But for a lot of people, although they know this, they don't necessarily know what the numbers are, and they don't track it. And so I would say start with this, right? Those 3 numbers are the most basic ones. You must know what's going on with your finances at that level. And once you've done that, you can move to the next 3 numbers, which are assets, liabilities, and net worth. And just like the first 3 numbers, which were income, expenses, and net worth, which is basically income minus expenses equal net worth, a similar calculation can be made with asset, liabilities, and net worth. Sorry, I think I meant cash flow in the previous sentence. So we have income minus expenses equal cash flow, which is what we have to track at least on a monthly basis. And then you have assets minus liabilities equal net worth, which you should also track. And if you can track it on a monthly basis, great. Now, assets are anything of value that produces value for you over time. Some people also account in there any kind of asset that has value that you could sell, right? So yes, you can include your car, you can include your house, you can include all sorts of things that have value. And if you were to sell them, how much would you get cash for them? But other assets are income producing assets like investment in stocks, right? Or a bank account with some kind of positive interest rate above inflation if possible. Those would be assets because they are holding value or generating value for you over time. And then from that, you subtract liabilities, which are basically things like loans and debt, whether you have student debt or credit card debt or loans for your car, your house, or whatever, mortgage. All of that would be liabilities that you also have to account for. And in some cases, it's good to reduce the liabilities. But the idea here is that assets minus liabilities would give you your net worth. And having an understanding of that number is extremely important. If you have a negative net worth, you're not in a very good position. And often, a lot of people who spend a lot on their studies will start life with negative net worth. That's usually not the case in Belgium because we're blessed to have affordable an affordable education system. But you can also go in negative net worth if you make a real estate investment that goes bad, right? If it goes wrong, something doesn't go as planned, that could lead to being in negative expenses. You can also go negative net worth. You can also go into negative net worth if you just simply you want to spend more. To do that, you borrow money more than you can actually afford, credit cards and personal loans, and that can be also very damaging. So on the other hand, if you can increase your net worth, that is obviously what's going to lead you to financial independence. Actually, for financial independence, you need both cash flow and net worth, and you could reach financial independence by focusing only on one of the two as well, right? So you could focus on financial independence by saying, hey, I want positive cash flow, but I want to be able to have that as like a passive income, right? So it doesn't have to be then at that point, it cannot really be cash flow from work. But if you find ways to generate cash flow from things that you've worked on, and then they generate cash flow for you on an ongoing basis with little work from your side, without having a very high net worth right away, this is still called financial independence if that passive income is sort of regular and recurring over time, and it can sustain for a long time without you having to do major work. On the other hand, you can also reach financial independence if you accumulate massive net worth without having necessarily focusing on cash flow. That's also possible because that net worth ideally then would be invested in certain assets that produce an income that can sustain your life, right? Which becomes this passive income, passive cash flow. But ideally, you want to track all 6 of those numbers. So if you don't know what these are for you today, I recommend you start income, expenses, the difference gives you cash flow. Get that for this month or last month, right? And then try to get that for the past year, just looking at your historical data. And ideally put it down on a spreadsheet, whether that's a Google spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet or even on paper. It doesn't matter. What's important is that you see how much you've earned over the past, say, 12 months or last year, how much you've spent and how much you have today, and how much you've had in your savings and how that is evolving. So are you having positive cash flow? Are you having negative cash flow? How is that changing from month to month? Are you able to save money? So do you have a higher net worth compared to last year, for example? Like, these are all important questions. And I recommend you go back at least a year. And if you can go back all the way to the beginning of your working career or even before, if you can get the historical data on how your personal finances have gone, like, that would be amazing. Obviously that's more advanced, but that would be amazing. And then from here, certainly what you would want to do is start tracking. So you've figured this out for this month, as we said, income, expenses, cash flow. Do that again next month and the month after and the month after. And at some point, this is going to become a very easy calculation for you to do. You'll know exactly how to do it. So it won't take much time. It will take time especially if your situation is complicated. It might take quite a bit of time the first time around. So I would say this is the third step, is really calculate those 6 numbers for you and then start tracking if you can. Now, actually, tracking is really the condition that allows you to get to step four. Step four is forecast. So you're tracking your personal finances up to a certain level. And then now that you have an idea of how things have been going in the past, and if you have some idea of your level of income in the future and level of expenses, you can start forecasting what your cash flow will be in the next month, 2-3 months, 6 months, a year, and what your net worth can be in the next few months or years. And again, spreadsheets help you do that in a very simple way, right? So to me, forecasting is amazing because it allows you to run scenarios. Okay, so what if nothing happens to my personal finances? So what if everything stays the same? Basically, I'm still spending the same, I'm still earning the same, and I'm doing this for the next 12 months. Where am I going to be in a year, right? Now, what if I'm able to save €100 more per month? For example, by cutting down on some subscription or something that I'm not reusing. That's an example that I'm using from the fifth step, basically. But basically, like, what if you were able to make some changes, earn more, save a bit more, so reduce expenses? How does that impact your cash flow and net worth for the next 12 months, for example? And I think this is a super important exercise to make, because it will show you the power of small changes, right? So you'll be able to say, hey, I'm cutting on something here that I'm not using, or I'm able to sell a few things that are worth so much, and I think I can sell some of this stuff every month. Anyway, over time, this adds up, right? And sometimes it's even something that it takes you 5-10 minutes to do, that reduces expenses by 50 to 100 euros, and that basically accumulates and stacks up over time. And so after 12 months, you see the big difference. And the way I like to look at this, it's even more advanced, is you do you make a forecast of a year or even several years, maybe even 10 years. And then you say, okay, so if I'm able, if I find a way to save €100 more, right? What's the impact in 10 years? And that will be thousands of euros. Now, yes, it might take extra work to save this €100 today, right? Whatever that is. It might also be very easy, no? But what I'm getting at is that the work and effort involved in trying to do that, when you see the reward of doing that, either in 12 months or in a year or in a few years, then it becomes a no-brainer to just go and do it, because the payback is insane, right? That's like the highest return on investment you can get on your time. Sometimes it's just go and spend some time trying to reduce expenses, because the return on investment is insane over time. So certainly something I recommend to do. Now, you don't have to make those forecasts and to go that far to get financial independence, but certainly is a tool that will help you better grasp the power of money, the power of like long term, and how it can really work in your favor. Now, I would say the fifth step is to find quick wins. And this is obviously related to the previous step that we discussed. But finding quick wins is, for example, finding ways to cut monthly expenses, right? So subscriptions, whether that's some apps that you've signed up at some point and that you've used for a while and then you've stopped, or if it's a program that you signed up to and you've used for a while or not and then you stopped, a gym subscription that you are sort of, a lot of people subscribe to gyms and just never go to them, or they go once or twice, and like over periods of time that they should have been going like 3 times a week and they just don't. That is normal, right? The whole subscription model is built around the fact that people will subscribe and then not necessarily use the stuff they subscribe to. And like, if you don't use it, cut it, right? And sometimes paying it will help you actually go and do it. And if that's the case, great. But if you've experienced that you're just not using it, not getting the value you want from it, then cut it. And subscriptions are something that's fairly easy to forget. So you sign up, it's on your credit card. The credit card expenses, they get deducted from your account right away. You don't necessarily go and check your credit card balance and the details every month. So these things add up and they just keep charging. So there alone, a lot of people listening to this podcast will see that there are, there's good money to be made or to be saved, but just looking at that. So I highly recommend you go and check your expenses in general, and whether that's subscription or things that you've been buying that you don't really need, then stop them, right? Now, you don't necessarily need to cut everything. Sometimes you can also change suppliers or negotiate the rates. So if you have a subscription, there's simple things like electricity and and mobile phone and internet, all that stuff. Look at it, and you don't have to cut it because obviously you must probably need this stuff, need those services, but you can negotiate, change, and get a lower rate. And as I said, even if you save 10 euros, it doesn't look like much per month, but over time it will add up. And if you do this for all your subscriptions, you might save, a few hundred euros potentially. And that has a massive impact on your personal finances. So certainly these are the quickest and easiest win, I would say. Now, there's something a bit harder, but that can also help. And that is to do a home inventory. So home inventory is to basically look at everything you own at home, basically the stuff you own that takes space, that you may have paid for, and that maybe you don't use as much as you wish you had. And so it's worth looking at what you have, whether that's clothes, tools, gadgets, toys. I don't know, I'm saying toys because I have kids, but things that you have that you're probably just storing somewhere that has value if you sell it, but as long as it's in there, and you're not using it, then selling that can give you some good returns. And you don't necessarily have to sell to get value from it. Sometimes just getting rid of it, donating, or making sure someone else can use it, can also bring you value by simply saving space, right? If there's less stuff, that means that you don't have to do so much cleaning. If you have to pay for storage, and don't have to pay for storage. And there's also a mental weight when we have more things in the places we live. So you can also, basically, this is all the whole decluttering movement, right? So it's essentially a bit of minimalism in your life, which leads to saving money almost naturally. Step 6 is to consider whether or not you need a budget. Now, we've talked about tracking expenses, but tracking expenses is different from having a budget. To me, tracking expenses is essential, right? You have to know where your money is going. You don't have to do it every month for the rest of your life. Some people do that, that's fine. But you have to do it for a certain amount of time so that you take control of your finances. And you have to keep some kind of tracking of your expenses globally. But like the details, you certainly need them at the beginning of your journey. And then as you get more comfortable, you can relax a bit. Now, if you want to go the extra step, which is something that a lot of people are sort of consider as being the first step, that is having a budget. To me, that's not the very first step. I think tracking is far more important. But budgeting can also help. Budgeting simply means allocating money to certain expenses. And often tracking is sort of a prerequisite or requirement for you to be able to budget, because you need to see what historically you've been spending on so that you can allocate money to be able to afford those things. And the whole exercise of budgeting is saying, well, instead of spending 500 euros on going out every month, I'm going to put a budget of 400 because I want to be able to save 100. And so it forces me to make choices within that category so that I don't spend more than 400 and I save this 100 per month. So that budgeting is essentially adding some restrictions, or at least being conscious where your money is going. It doesn't have to be with restrictions, because you can decide on the level of budget you put for each category. But it certainly is an exercise that brings you awareness about where your money is going. And in some cases can help you save further. So if you do put restrictions, then it will help you save further. Do you need a budget? I would say in the vast majority of cases, people do need the budget. Like anyone who has some struggle financially and who starts tracking expenses already has a first budget in mind. And I think the next step is simply keeping track of that and giving you objectives and limits as to how much can be spent in different areas. Now, someone who tracks his or her expenses and who has been fairly comfortable already in his or her personal finance, someone who's naturally frugal may not need a budget. So it's not something everybody must have. But I have to say that budgeting is something that can give you good pleasure in tracking your finances, being able to achieve your goals, and make the whole thing more fun. So budgeting can help. And I would say there's also something that's called the anti-budget. which is something that's, for example, Paula Pants from Afford Anything podcast talks about quite a bit. And she says, simply move or pay yourself first. So when you get paid, move the money that you want to save or invest immediately the moment you get paid, and then the rest you're free to spend. And that's also an okay approach. And it's probably less efficient long term in the sense that you'll be spending a bit more than if you had a budget. But it's certainly something that I respect, and I have used that for a long time. So I'm more on the naturally frugal, pay yourself first kind of person. I have not exactly followed a strict budget, I think, at any point in my personal finance journey, but I see budget being an extremely important tool for a lot of people. And so I do think it is something necessary and useful to most of us. So that was number 6. Step number 7 would be to learn about investing, right? So yes, it's all good to be able to increase, to save money and put that money aside. You need to put that money to work. If it stays on the bank account, especially with inflation, it's just going to lose money over time, and it won't be able to put you on the track to financial independence, because for financial independence, an essential part of that is to have passive income. And so being able to invest your money is a very important aspect of that. There are several ways of generating passive income, but simple investments is the most common way of doing that. And when I say simple investment, I'm not going to go into any kind of alternative investment, but we're going to talk about real estate and stock market investing. So for me, real estate investing is something I'm not super familiar with, but certainly on my journey, I have explored the option to go that way, because it was like everybody talks about real estate in the sense everybody knows what a house is, and everybody understand what buying a house means and what paying rent for a house means. And everyone also has heard the saying that paying rent is like throwing money out of the window. So obviously all of that made me want to explore that as an option. And I'll speak about this in future episodes for sure, because it's a big debate, or it's a big topic, not necessarily debate. But certainly for me, it didn't work out. So real estate investing was not something I was willing to go for a number of reasons, in terms of risk, practicalities, work involved, and who I am as a person and what I'm trying to do with my personal finances. And I think I would have gone for it nonetheless if I didn't know about index investing. So the reason I didn't go for real estate is because I have considered other alternatives. And that's initially was stock market investing, which was, the first time you hear about stock market investing or even think of considering it, it feels like it's a very complex topic for which you have to study for years, or you have to trust a financial advisor or a banker to do it for you, because that's how it is, shown in the media. But index investing is actually something that I discovered that completely changed my mind on that, because anybody can learn it. You can put it in place in just a few weeks or a few months once you've learned, and then it takes just 5 minutes a month. It doesn't involve, some of the risk of real estate investing or the high sums you need to put up front. It's much more flexible and liquid. You can move things around much more easily. But all you need for index investing is to have a real long-term mindset. So this is investing that does not aim to make as much possible as in as short time as possible, but it's aimed at making good growth over long periods of time, for example, for pension or early retirement, financial independence. So when I discovered index investing, I realized that was the way for me, right? And one of the reasons I'm running this podcast is because most people don't know about financial independence, just generally, and don't know about index investing, or both. And I think both of these concepts to me have been life-changing, and I see that everyone can benefit. So the reason I'm sharing this knowledge here, we're going to talk a lot about index investing on this podcast, it's because it is massively unknown. It's just completely unknown and can have a massive impact on people's lives. We just have to share the word. People must know about this. It's completely changed my life, and I want everyone to benefit from this. So that's why I'm talking about this. So the seventh step is to learn about index investing. If you want to go the real estate route, it's fine by me. It's the most common way to do this. I think often it's because people haven't considered other options, and typically they don't know about index investing. some people still knowing about index investing keep going for real estate. I completely respect that as long as you've explored both ways. Now, real estate investing, I think, does require some learning upfront to be done in the right way. I don't think advice from your banker or your parents or your uncles and aunties, unless there are real estate investors with good experience themselves, but if they've just bought their own house and an apartment and a vacation home, I don't think that makes them experienced index like real estate investor. I think real estate investment really requires work, knowledge, and research upfront. So I would say if that's the route you want to take, be sure to invest in yourself first. It's really important, and that could take some time, but it's really well worth it, I believe, because each deal is important. The very first deal is massively important because you can really decide on the direction that your personal finances will go. So be sure to do it well. And then on index investing, same thing, it's just much easier. Obviously, once you know what I know, it's easier. And if you don't know, then yes, you have to learn it. But the learning curve there is smaller. It's not as scary as stock markets investing looks like. It's certainly much simpler than what your banker or financial advisor wants you to believe. The whole financial industry doesn't have an interest in you knowing about index investing because they wouldn't make money out of it. So anyway, there's so many reasons why it looks like it's complicated, but really it's not. And it can be learned in just a few weeks. You can learn fully on your own with the communities, FIRE Belgium, the BeFire Reddit, the Boggerheads website, and tons of really good books are there for you to learn. And I highly recommend you do that. It's super important. And then if you need extra guidance, you can also learn with a coach or follow a program. And that's another really, really solid way of doing that, because it basically makes it that you learn much faster. You start investing earlier, you avoid all your mistakes. All of that's super important. And if that's something you're interested in, I would recommend you watch the free workshop I have on my website. If you go to firebelgium.com/investing workshop, or even on the homepage, it should be there. Sign up to the workshop, and I'll walk you through basically everything you need to know about index investing, whether you want to go full DIY or if you want some support. You will learn in either case. And the third way to go for index investing is to invest with a robo-advisor. There are currently 3 that I know of in Belgium that seem reasonably good. We're going to do episodes on those later. But robo-advisors typically will charge about 1% for larger portfolios, and over time they can charge less, but they will charge some money to run your investments. And as index investors, I think that is a massive benefit, almost a great way to get started and to invest. And for lots of people, that would be a great solution. For people who are aiming to retire earlier, this 1% will change their plans and delay it by potentially a few years. So think about this carefully. But I do highly recommend robo-advisors in general for the wider population. People seeking financial independence might not be the most optimal way of doing it, but certainly a good way to start. So anyway, so these are the 3 ways you can start with index investing. And so learning to invest, that's step number 7. Step number 8 to me is optimizing money for value, right? So this is more on the mindset side of things, but basically you want to use money to buy stuff that you value. And the first step there is figure out what you value. And then you want to use money for stuff you value. And if you're here and listening, there's a good chance you value freedom and security, which is what financial independence gives you. So when you start buying things, you can think about, okay, so I could buy this thing. I could upgrade my car, for example, or buy a bigger car or buy a bigger house or whatever. Or I could buy the equivalent difference in security and freedom. And that's basically what becomes your way of comparing, how you spend money. It's just a different, it's like a different lens that we add on top of our regular lenses of should I spend on this or not. We have one more lens as people from financial independence communities that we say, okay, so I want it, yes. Do I need it? Wait, I need it, yes. Do I want it? Yes. Sometimes do I need it yes or no. It's not sure that you actually need it. But do I want it? Yes. Sorry, I'm going to repeat myself. Do I want this thing? Yes. Do I need it? Yes, no, it depends on. Depending on this, you can already make a difference. We can make a decision. And then third is is this extra expense worth it to me, or would I rather put that money into having more security and freedom and potentially retire earlier, or have more time or more options and opportunities in the future, and security, right? So, and that the answer is yes or no, and depending on that, you can make that purchase or not. I guess it's just that you have one more lens to which you look at your expenses when you know that your money can buy freedom, right? And if freedom is one of your values. Anyway, so step 8, optimize money for your values and then or for value. And then step 9 is learn to earn more. Yes, so we've learned about, we've talked about how to spend less by cutting on quick wins. We've talked about investing. You kind of have to learn and start investing, and how to optimize on your spending, which is buy stuff that you value, but then you also want to find ways to earn more money. And obviously this could be, we could have an entire, there's so much to say about how to make more money. But basically, briefly, there's to me at least 2 ways of earning more, and that is that could be within your career, right? So either you find ways to get promoted or just get a raise at work, or you move to another company that pays more, or you change industry, an industry that pays more, maybe aligns better with your character, your values, what you're able to deliver. Maybe it's a place where you're able to better perform. And so, but basically focus on your career and find ways to align it with who you are and where you can bring most value. Because again, it's about value. But if at work you're able to create value and provide value to your employer, clients, etc., then the reward for it will be better pay. You will also need a skill set like negotiation and all this, and being able to present yourself and sell yourself, good CVs, being able to network to find better jobs and all that. So it's an entire field, right? But it's worth spending time on that. It certainly played a massive role in my personal journey. I will speak about my personal journey in several future episodes. So yeah, spend time on that as well. And most people already have that as one of their focuses. But I think, yeah, basically I've reinforced that. And if you haven't focused on that, I recommend you do think about this, especially financial independence is one of your goals. And then something else that's important as well is if you feel like you've sort of reached a certain level of earning in your career, or you simply don't want to push that way, then you could look at something else on the side. Also a side hustle, entrepreneurship or freelancing, but basically finding a way to generate value outside of regular employment, and either keep that as a side thing or grow it and invest, further and go the entrepreneurship route, which is fascinating and very hard, but really amazing as a journey as well. Certainly for any of these ways, and if you want to increase your income in general, you need to keep learning, whether that's in your specific field, whether that's like negotiation skills to be able to move up, management skills to be able to move up, or entrepreneurship skills or anything. But basically, you have to keep learning, right? So developing your own competence, your own skill set would be super important. And you want to be smart and strategic in the way you decide to pursue opportunities to increase your income. You don't want to simply double down on your job, for example, if you know that there's a clear limit as to how much you can make there. In that case, it's probably better to look at a different solution, a different situation. And then if you choose things like side hustles, then be strategic. Think about stuff that will, that has potential for earning, but that also is aligned with who you are and where you're willing to put time and effort. It has to be something you're sort of passionate about, most likely, because for you to be able to make money from something else than regular employment, you'll have to spend time on it. And it's much easier to spend time on stuff that you're passionate about. And it's much easier if that's something that helps others, right? So if you can find ways to create value and have a positive impact in other people's lives, that is often rewarded with money. And it's also easier for you to invest yourself in it to make it happen. These are some of my advices for that. I would say, yes, learn to earn more and find ways to earn more. Don't make this your sole focus in life, though, right? Always, everything we discuss here, take it with a grain of salt, in the sense that find the balance, right? On the saving side, you don't want to save so much that you stop living. Never. You want to live today. By the way, that's the next step. But same on the earning side. Don't spend all your time only in that direction. Find the balance, something that works for you. It's really important. So actually, yes, that's step number 10 is find happiness and fulfillment now, today, right? So yes, do all of these things, but it's very tempting, especially at the beginning of the journey, to pour yourself so much into trying to reach financial independence and optimizing everything and pushing to the limits on everything and going to the stream, that we can go so deep that we lose ourselves in it. And so since the goal can sometimes be quite far away, I recommend you enjoy the journey, right? So don't be miserable on the journey, trying to optimize everything, trying to get there as fast as possible. Take care of yourself, take care of your relationships, because reaching financial independence doesn't solve everything, right? So if you're hoping that financial independence will resolve all the problems that you have, that's not true. They will still be there. It will be a little bit easier because we'll have more time and options and flexibility, but you still have to work on them. And I think if you feel like there's stuff in your life that you have to improve, but that you're not satisfied with, then don't make financial independence your solution to that, because that's very rarely the case, right? So if you want to reach financial independence because your core focus is to quit your job because for some reason you don't like it at all, you hate it, it's really hard, then maybe consider changing things there, right? Because you don't want to be miserable all the way to financial independence, and then you don't know whether after you stop working whether that will still be the case or not. So I'd say be careful. So to me, on the journey, please live life and enjoy, do stuff that makes you happy, meet people, find a job that brings you satisfaction, fulfillment, happiness, if possible. Be with people, fall in love, play with your kids, spend time with your parents, take care of other people, be there with your friends, for your friends, take care of your siblings and other family members, be involved in your community, experience being a human being to the fullest that you can. Find something that gives you purpose and meaning, something bigger, something that's impactful, that can change things for others. To me, it's all about that in the end. Financial independence is only a tool for you to live a better life, but you have to focus on living a better life, not on the tool, right? Just use the tool for that. Don't make the tool your goal, because you're going to lose yourself in there, and you're not going to get to a happy life if you focus on the wrong things. So to me, it's be present, right? Be here today, enjoy today. Yes, work on the future. Be smart about how you can do that. Now you know that you have the power to make a difference. Just don't make that your only thing. Make life your only thing, and this extra power you have, use it to make life your better only thing, and make life better for other people around you. As you know, in this podcast, we'll talk about other things than personal finance and financial independence. We'll also speak about how to have a positive impact around in our life. But we have to start with ourselves, I think. And once we are in a good place, we're in a better place to help others as well. So that's what I wish to you. So if you're a beginner, I hope you found this episode useful. I've shared with you the 10 steps that to me are essential almost to be able to progress towards financial independence and reaching it. It is very much beginner friendly. So for each of these steps, you can, there's a lot of action you can take from just this episode, but you can also dig further and learn a lot more. Again, if you're interested in index investing, I recommend you check the free workshop that I have on my website, because from there, basically that will unlock almost everything related to to index investing in Belgium. And so, I'll look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please share it with someone that you think this can help, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.